Today I'd like to talk about implicit versus explicit rewards, and specifically how it relates to game design. And there's been a good amount of discussion on this topic, in particular relating to achievements. While I think there's a number of fans of achievements, certainly the critique of game developers who maybe don't want to add achievements or don't like them in general is that you're losing focus on the game and instead looking at other objectives. So, for example, let's say I'm playing a game and I know the list of achievements, and one of the achievements is get 50 shots with the crossbow or something like that. And normally I wouldn't play with the crossbow because I don't like the way it handles or something like that. But the way the game is structured, I'm playing it differently, and perhaps I'm having less fun. Now, this is a hypothetical example, and perhaps, maybe the crossbow just takes a little while to learn to love it, and then I'm going to have even more fun. But I think this whole topic can extend further than just achievements. So that was a good example of something that's directly applicable to Ratchet & Clank, which I think is a game that's very well designed. So in Ratchet & Clank, I take my favorite weapon, I use it until I reach its max level, and then I switch to a completely different weapon. Sometimes it's a weapon I don't really like. While they have some cool sniper rifles in Ratchet & Clank, I've never really used them in any of the games, including the ones that I worked on. The question is, well, firstly, I could not play that way, and that's the thing is, when I first got an Xbox 360, I look up the achievements. Oh, cool! What can I do? But now I just play the game the way I want to play it, and if I get achievements, that's awesome. If I don't, then oh well. And I think that's sort of a better way to play for me personally. But, with like Ratchet & Clank, there are ancillary benefits, because sometimes you reach a boss fight, and so maybe if you didn't level up a certain weapon, then that boss fight could be really hard. And unfortunately, I think Ratchet & Clank Size Matters is possibly a bad offender in that category, and I think I worked on it, so maybe I'm partially to blame. But the Luna boss, again, this is only if you have Ratchet & Clank Size Matters and played it and care about it. If you don't have weapons with a lot of range, then it's very difficult to kill. So if you mainly leveled up your shotgun or didn't get blasters or have a lot of ammo, then it can be a boss fight that's too hard. And that's a difficult design problem for us, the team, to detect, because that's almost like you have to progress through the games. Like when we're testing it, usually we give ourselves, the weapons we think people will have, or the levels that we think people will have them at, and then play with that. But it's difficult to sort of take a step back and say, well, what if someone just wants to play with the shotgun and, makes those decisions. Which can be a very difficult thing when designing like a sprawling RPG, certainly less so for a game like Ratchet & Clank. Anyway, I promise this was rising out of a brainstorming that I was doing for the game, and also in response to things we've discussed on the forums. So someone on the forums discussed like the idea of sort of frustrating people's OCD, at least in the sense that the completionist desire for a game. And certainly I don't think everyone who wants to complete all the content in the game has OCD. I don't think that's in particular an OCD thing, because, you know, that's a good thing, something you enjoy or getting your money's worth, whereas OCD is normally very negative. It's a very negative, anxiety-provoking situation. But I think, you know, certainly if you have OCD, it could be tied to completion of games as well. I'm sure there's some people who have trouble with that. Personally, I don't 100% like any game I play except Deadly Premonition. But I don't, so my OCD at least doesn't extend into the way I play games. But the idea was that, you know, some content is locked off because you make a decision and you have to go back and play things again to see what would happen, and then maybe there's nothing, or maybe it's just a little clue. But that was sort of wrapped into my brainstorming as of late of how to give the player rewards, and certainly something we've discussed more on the forum is the idea of empty rooms. I'm of the opinion that empty rooms in Neverending Nightmares serve to build out the world and basically make it feel more like a real location, make it less linear, you know, make the path forward unknown. So I'm of the opinion that, you know, the empty rooms served a purpose. Other people think maybe not so much and say, you know, oh, if I go into an empty room, I want there to be a collectible, I want there to be something, you know, ammo or whatever, and that's why they explore the game. But for me, you know, I was thinking in terms of implicit rewards. So Neverending Nightmares, the reward of exploring the game is the act itself. You get to be in this crazy, weird, surreal space and experience it. And obviously we have some cool and creepy things, you know, only in little side rooms. And, you know, we definitely tried to make the game interesting. We didn't try to make it very boring. And certainly some of the side rooms worked as checkpoints, basically. So it would be difficult to cut those, for example. But, you know, the idea that someone wants an implicit reward, an explicit reward from exploration, whereas I view exploration itself as its own implicit reward. Now, certainly I think one of the ways to make everyone happy is to add more closer looks, more sort of information on the story. You know, I mean, I think people like the whole, you know, letters, audio recording, that sort of mechanic. And obviously, I mean, you know, they're usually random recordings in random places that are sort of unrealistic. And so, but I mean, personally, I'd like to try and make them, you know, fit the world a little better, because again, I think things that feel out of place in the world sort of take you out of that world, and that's you know, one of my huge design goals is to be very immersive, and I think that works really well for games. But anyway, so, you know, obviously that is a you know, it's a kind of explicit reward, but in some sense it's kind of implicit. And my question is, you know, as a game designer, would I want to make it more explicit? So, like, for example, imagine playing Neverending Nightmares, and there's a list of closer looks, like inside the menu, and you know, things where you know, you didn't find it, you know, there's question marks, and otherwise you can see the list of things, and I mean, that's kind of what Telltale did with The Wolf Among Us, although those were a little sort of even better because, you know, they gave you little nuggets of the backstory of the characters, and also most of them were impossible to not find. But there were a few where it was kind of like the idea someone suggested earlier, where you make a choice, and because of your choice, you only get one and not the other. So I don't know exactly how I feel about the idea of having this sort of table of content, or not table of contents, but essentially lists of closer looks, things you can find, you know, with the question marks for the things you don't find. I mean, certainly if it's story content, which a lot of people felt like the closer look should be more related to the story, and certainly I think for the project we're thinking about, you know, giving more nuggets to the story it would be a cool thing. But I mean, again, I think we're going to create something that's, you know, perhaps easier to understand than Neverending Nightmares, but I wouldn't say it's going to be easy, because I think, you know, there's a lot of benefits to the sort of implicit storytelling, you know, giving you clues, and then it's up to the player to combine those, rather than just hand-holding. And I think that's sort of an interesting thing you can do, and certainly, you know, when I look at, like, Silent Hill 2, which sort of is a model for a lot of the work I do. In Silent Hill 2, you know, they once you see the ending, then you go back and you think, hey, what does this mean? And how can I put this into context, knowing the ending? And I really like that that idea, you know, and perhaps, you know, what we're doing now, because we're going to be dropping a lot more clues, maybe it won't be as obvious, but I think when you have the clues without context, they'll be less meaningful than once you know the context, and then you can try and put all the clues together. And so I think having a way to access those in the main menu will be beneficial to us, you know, even though it's perhaps a little more explicit game reward for those people who are, you know, completionists. Then the question becomes, do we give an achievement for collecting all of the items, or getting all the closer looks, or whatever? And you know, that's something I'm torn about, because achievements are a game context, and are something that only exists in the context of playing a game and not in the reality of the world. And so that was something I was very particular about, the way the achievements work, like except for the veins, which basically you've already beaten the game several times before you get that, but the other achievements don't pop up during gameplay. They only pop up during the end credits. So, I don't know. Something to think about, but I guess the question for you guys is, do you like explicit rewards? Do you like implicit rewards? Do you feel like things that remind you, hey, this is a game, you know, these sort of more gamey systems are a positive thing? I mean, certainly I think for our next game, we might veer a little more towards the gamey side of things, but I definitely don't think it will be your typical game and have a lot of the more gamey systems. But I think we do want more interaction and more sort of buy-in from the players, because I think that aids in the immersion, which is important to us. So anyway, thanks for watching.